There's
He's
two
not
parts
there.
of your brain, aren't there? The logical part and the emotional part. I mean, for now, I say it's 4 years on, and I'm sitting there watching the TV sometimes, and my cat will push the door open to come in with his head. But as soon as the door starts to open, I always look about 6 feet up, because where she would have walked in. Even now, I still almost expect that face. Even though my logical brain is saying, well, that's not going to happen. I know it's the cat. There's still a tiny part of me that just looks up. Yeah.
The fact that my husband is missing Ted Lasso is shocking to me, because he was the hugest sport fan in the world, and we bonded over sports movies and all that stuff. And so I sometimes will go, oh, I can't wait to tell him about Roy Kent, and go, he's not here. Yeah. It's so dumb. So
series that you started watching together that came to an end after they died, and you've seen like the first 7 seasons, and then
together.
You watch season 8 on your own, and you're going, that sort of thing. Yeah, it's those stupid things, but they're worth saying, because everybody feels it, and everybody feels it in different ways. So even though it might be an obvious thing, it's always worth saying these kind of things, I think. You know.
Absolutely.
But it also, there were things like Jeremy was really good at DIY around the house, so I never even had to put a picture up or fix anything. And after he died, after the year and a half, I think it was, I was like, you know what, I need to do this. I need to be independent enough to do this. And so I went on a DIY course. I still can't put a nail in the wall, but I went on the course because
you did the course.
I needed to empower myself. What's that?
I said, but you did the course, so that I
did the course, exactly.
For me, it was cooking. It was cooking. She was an incredible cook, and she was so good and made it so easy that I didn't have to cook a meal in, practically 19 years. It was incredible, because we had exactly the same 19 years. And after she died, for a while, I just sort of kept going by getting ready-made food. But at some point, I decided I need to do something. So I had a new kitchen put in, and basically taught myself to fall in love with cooking, and now I love it. But it was things like that finding the new version of you that acknowledges who they were, and that they're still part of it, but you're finding this new version of yourself that's had to come out of the circumstance you're in.
Absolutely. Cooking's a really interesting one, Gary, because Jeremy cooked a lot, and he was really good, right? So I would come home from work, and he'd say trout stuffed with sweet corn and potatoes and creamed potatoes and whatever it was. And he'd come home, and I'd say, sausage, egg and chips all right tonight, darling? So that was our dynamic. And when he died, I just stopped cooking. I lived off noodles, hot jacket potatoes. Actually, for the first year, I ate junk, just rubbish, eclairs. I ate a lot of eclairs, I remember, and a lot of salami for some reason, and drank a lot of red wine. But I cooking for one person, because like you have children, Gary, so it's different. I didn't have that. So
yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. So now I decide I don't even boil an egg now. So
but there was a lot of red wine, and also a lot of lasagna, mostly from other people, which was fantastic.
Yeah. Free food. When the week my husband died, the first week and a half, I had people, some who owned restaurants, some who were just like people who cook stuff, like they'd send things over, bring things over. And I had a friend who wanted to check on me, but didn't want to annoy me. So she would come over under the guise of, what new food do you have? Can I have some of your new food? And we would just laugh. It's like, yeah, she's a new food lady. This discussion is sort of like who we are and who we were, and the combination of those two things leads me to this question about the third wheel thing, about if you've gotten used to being a part of couple friends, or part of dynamic where it's, Gary and Joy, or, it's Leslie and Scott or whatever. And then they're just Leslie or Gary or Shalini. What was that like to set that identity going forward as an individual person, both in specific friend dynamics and social dynamics, and just for yourself?
That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
So the first year, I didn't do anything. I didn't go out. I was a recluse. So it just didn't happen. And every time somebody invited me out, I refused. I was like, no. So, and then the second year, when just after I wrote my book, was about to publish, and after my father died, I started dating. So there wasn't that third wheel thing. So I never really came across it. And I think by the time I did, when my friends started inviting me out again, I was confident enough to go out. So I never really felt it. But I think I deliberately didn't put myself in that position. I didn't want to be the woman who was a widow who might be hitting on her friends' husbands or anything like that. Not that I would, but I just didn't want to put myself in that position, because I've heard so many horror stories.
Was it weird to think of yourself once you started dating, to think of yourself as single, or to think that other people thought of you as single, even though you were not single by choice?
I didn't even call myself a widow for the first year. I called myself a wife. And I still did. I remember going on the first holiday and saying married, single, divorced, widowed, and thinking, do I put married because I still feel married, but actually legally I'm widowed. It was really difficult.